Hello and welcome to Beyond the Harbor R, or Redux for some of you. I guess it's a remake, kind of, but not really, of what they previously had. So that's why it's called Redux. A lot of the stuff was remade, I guess, or I don't know. To be honest, I know pretty much nothing about this story, and the only reason that I know about it is actually because Anthemix posted a song that he did for the story. I was like, well, I might as well read it. And since I have nothing to read right now, then I guess I'm gonna do this. Now, what I do know is that there's at least 3 chapters, so at least that's 3 days worth of stuff. So yeah. But yeah, well, I guess without further ado, let's begin. Resident Evil. Kind of gives you Resident Evil vibes. The bus hums quietly as it rounds a turn. At least, I think it was a turn. About 20 minutes ago, a dense fog had rolled in, obscuring my view of about anything really. Not that there was much to look at anyways. Even an outsider like me could tell that this little town was out in the boonies. About 5 hours into the trip, the road became particularly rough, and I couldn't focus on anything other than the seat shaking me around. My ass hurts, but it would hurt a hell of a lot more if Mama knew where I was actually going. I was lying through the tips of my teeth when I told her I was going to spend the weekend looking for a new job. In reality, I'm hooking up with the sketchy dude I met on 4chan. Hmm, I don't think she'd ever forgive me if I got myself murdered, but it was time I stopped dreaming and took the leap. I raised a finger to my head to adjust my earbuds. I bought these ones recently, wireless. They were a convenience of the modern age for sure, as long as you disregarded them getting lodged in your ear canal. Guess the tech wasn't quite there yet. Speaking of, where are you now? I quickly typed out a response. Just pulled into Harborton. Think we're heading to the main terminal now. The reply is almost instant. I leaned back into the seat, nose pointed skyward, and let out a long sigh. I've got butterflies in my tummy, and it's likely not just from the sudden change in altitude. I jolt back up when I hear the loud ding of the intercom overhead. Now arriving, Harborton Central Terminal. Without even thinking, I bring my free hand up to my chest and grab her ring, hung gently around my neck. I mumble a quiet prayer before I shove my phone back into my pocket and stand up. Too quickly as the blood rushes into my legs all at once, and I'm overcome with painful pins and needles. Fuck! I blurt out the word I was taught not to say in situations like this, drawing the attention of an elderly woman seated a bit further ahead. Hey, watch that mouth! There are children here! Karen, probably. I raise my hands and shake my head, making eye contact with the terrifying husk of a woman. Sorry, please, I apologize. I could play it innocent when I needed to. I wasn't much of a potty mouth, but I wasn't a saint either. I see her eyes squint at me from inside those sunken sockets. She quietly judges me, and after deeming me unworthy, she purses her lips and returns to, actually, I had no idea. Perhaps this entity was put in place to monitor public transit for all eternity. I was fortunate enough to survive this encounter, but any further assaults on family values would have dire consequences. I breathed another sigh, this time much quieter than the last. I'd kept my suitcase on my person since I nearly lost it on the first bus transfer. It's nowhere near heavy, as I had only packed the bare essentials. A couple outfits, my laptop, my phone charger. Maybe I should have brought a jacket. I wheel my stuff up to the front of the bus, passing the dried up creature vaguely resembling a woman. Her hollow eyes stare right through me. Her mind no doubt conjuring some story about how a beaner assaulted her on the bus to post to Facebook. Maybe just calling me a dumbass instead of something outright malicious. I'll bet you Gladys and Barbara will get a kick out of that. I chuckle quietly as I step out of the interior. I had barely enough time to grow accustomed to. As soon as I do, I'm assaulted with a chilly ocean breeze. Definitely should have brought a jacket. Oh well. Travel guide wasn't kidding though. There's a sort of saltiness in the air that's hard to describe. I'm a long way from home, huh? Gone were the endless fields of corn, and in their stead, salt. Great start, eh? I wonder how good the food is. My daydream of food are interrupted by another sharp ping from the phone. I pull it out of my pocket and open it up. Behind you. Gah! I stumble backwards, landing hard on my ass, and twisting my tail in a way I describe as less than comfortable. Standing over me, victorious, was the man I'd come to see in the first place. Damn, that never gets old. You'd think people would stop whipping out when I spook them, eh? I blinked my eyes repeatedly, making sure this was actually the guy that sent me his picture. He was quite a bit shorter than I was expecting. Juan, right? He grins, polished teeth reflecting the sunlight. I certainly hope I didn't just sexually harass a random guy. He hesitates for a second, weighing his words. Or maybe I would, if the random guy was as good looking as you. The toothy smile returns as he reaches out a hand to help me up. Well, that's one hell of a first impression. Second impression? Fuck, I don't know how online meetups work. He slits his eyes at me, massive grin never leaving his face. I have a feeling you knew what you were signing up for. I tilt my head to the side a bit as I chuckle and take his hand. Guess you're proof not every anon on X is a neckbeard. He pulls me up with a surprising amount of strength, especially for his size. Do I look like I could grow a beard, even if I really wanted to? Nah. He lets go of me as my feet end up square on the ground again. I'm a lot of things, but a bear ain't one of them. The cat looks me up and down before resuming. You, Juan, you've seen your fair share of bears, eh? I shake my head. Nope, and it's just JC, thanks. He slits his eyes and licks his chops. And you can call me Daddy if that's what you're into. The entire station goes eerily silent as the cat's bold flirting reaches a climax of sorts. Unable to hold it in, I clutch my belly as it shoots a deep laugh into my throat and out of my mouth. The feline's eyes widen, clearly not the reaction he was expecting. Damn. He folds his arms. I shake my head as my laughter slows, wiping a single tear from my eye. No. My laughter slows down enough that I can elaborate through my bursts of chuckling. It's been ages since I heard that one. I had a friend that would pull the same kind of stuff. Guy was a dingo, about your height, always made me laugh. He smiles at me. Well, if you like that, there's plenty more to come. His devilish grin spreads further across his face. I like a challenge. The last few chuckles escape my belly, and I do my best to fix my hair with my hand. I fold my arms and nod my head, a smile remaining on my face throughout. Heh, I think you and I will get along just fine. You're a unique one, that's for sure. Hopefully the sort of unique that has the information I'm looking for. So, tell me, how'd you end up on X? I shrug my shoulders. I saw some guys on a true crime forum I follow talking about it, like real crimes that happened on 4chan. So of course, what do I do but go check it out myself? I saw the option, so I created an account and jumped into the first board I could think of, requests. I posted, as one does, where can I find some information about cold cases I couldn't find on Google? And, it probably would have been for the best if I hadn't. I shake my head. Using the same username for every site was a mistake. Some fucker hacked my RuneScape account. The cat side-eyes me. Damn. He smiles. You were a massive dork when you were a kid too, huh? I grin back at him, resting my arm on the top of the car's seat. Guess I always have been. Though, give me a break, eh? I had to be the beacon of positivity when things got rough. I chuckle. My little brother had to learn from somebody, you know. Didn't stop him from being an annoying little shit, though. The cat stares back at me. Annoying siblings? He pulls a car into park, rolling his sunroof back as he does. You planning on killing him? Is that why you're into criminology? I chuckle, though I feel it comes off as less genuine than I'd like it to. Hasn't everyone dreamed of killing their little siblings? The cat doesn't respond, just turning away from me. There's a painfully dead silence that hangs after my joke falls flat. Unable to stomach the awkwardness for long, I change the topic to something I'm a bit more interested in. So, tell me, Oliver Blanche, you said he was a friend of yours? The cat nods his head as he taps his car door closed with his butt. Yep, we went to high school together, like I said on Discord. Though he was a grade under me, and the only time we ever really interacted was when I was a sophomore. I tilt my head. Really? 10th grade? If he was only one grade behind you, what happened? Did you have a falling out? He shrugs his shoulders, walking over to my side of the car. I was never in with his friend group. Don't get me wrong, kid was cute as hell. Back then, I'd banged just about anybody, so of course I made an effort when I saw how close he was with another dude. I raised an eyebrow, folding my arms. But there were issues. Issues like... He presses a discreet little button on his car key, causing the trunk of his car to open. Ollie's friend group. It was really small. I heave my suitcase out of the trunk, and once it's firmly on the ground, sling my canvas messenger bag over my shoulder. He was weird. Didn't talk to people. Missed school a lot. I'm pretty sure V and Dawn were the only people that bothered talking to him, and even then, he was quiet. With my free hand, I bring up my index finger to gently tap my skull. The cat interrupts my thinking with an obnoxiously bright smile. I can give you some more deets when we get settled in, eh? I hesitate a second before nodding my head. Kino. I turn my gaze upwards towards the neon sign contrasting the blue sky just beyond it. Den sûr? The cat lifts his own suitcase out of the truck before shutting it. This is where I stayed last time I was in Harborton. It's one of the nicer motels by the beach. He smiles, closing his eyes tight. Direct access to the harbor. That's what you wanted, right? My eyes open a little wider as those words pass his lips. Yes. I really want to see it. Let's go ASAP. He interrupts my excitement by wiggling a defiant finger in front of my face. Don't you think you better make sure we have a bed to share? I tilt my head. You mean 2 beds? The cat smiles as a response before turning away from me and walking up to the motel's reception desk. I follow in turn. An older man, likely in his late 50s, rests in a chair behind a thick-looking pane of clear plastic. He likely didn't see us approach, since he hadn't yet lifted his nose out of his book he was reading, a real page-turner by the intensity which he scanned the pages. Sam giggles to himself, likely seeing an opportunity to cause some mischief. He turns his head back to me, a soft glint reflecting the early evening sun and illuminating his eyes. And before I can reflect on his next potential action, he slams his fists on the glass once, followed by a flurry of small taps. Help me! Help! There's a murderer out here! I think he may be... He turns around to face me, winking coyly before raising his hands to defend himself. No! I blink. The cat seems to be satisfied with this prank, but I turn to see the victim man. He's unholstered a handgun and pointed it at me. Instinctively, I throw up my hands. Don't shoot! Ha! Look, I'm... As soon as he grasps the sudden peril he's placed me in, the cat scrambles to his feet, drawing the terrified eyes of the man behind the desk. Shit! It was just a prank! I swear, don't shoot! The man squints at us for a brief moment before sighing and lowering his gun. Dear Lord, does anyone sane ever visit this town? He shakes his head and returns his gun to the holster on his waist. I keep my mouth shut, unsure of what to say as my adrenaline dies down. You damn kids and your nonsense! He shakes his head again, floppy ears swaying as he does. Y'all got business, if not, get! He raises his hand and I flinch, but to my relief, he just points at a no loitering sign just outside his office. Y'all can read, can't you? I couldn't answer him if I tried, as any words I tried to make had caught in my throat. Luckily, Sam seems completely unshaken and chimes in for me. Yep, we rented a room for the weekend. That'd be under Samuel Wong. He leans in a bit closer to the manager's counter. And in an hour or so, he'll be under me. I roll my eyes at his awful joke timing, but decide it'll be in my best interest to shrug it off. The manager, much less enthused, sits back on his desk and scrolls through a list of names on his computer. Sorry, sir. Hey, can you get some ice from the icebox? I turn my nose up at the cat's request. And risk running into the guy you pissed off? No way in hell. I spent the last 15 minutes trying to calm myself down after that incident, and failing somewhat spectacularly. Aw, come on. I've seen people react way worse than that. He plops his skinny ass right next to me on my bed. He didn't even fire. Think about it. If it weren't for my quick thinking, you'd likely not be sitting here right now. He rests what was likely his favorite hand to sexually assault someone with on my knee, immediately sending me into alert mode. Don't tell me you pissed your pants and need to change. I squint my eyes shut before resting my fingers on my temples and releasing a painfully long sigh. My bladder was mercifully empty at the time. Never thought I'd say this, but bless the bus restroom. The cat responds by simply shrugging his shoulders. Well, it couldn't hurt to have a little check, Trust me, I'm a certified bladder inspector. His hand begins to make a familiar trip up my leg, before I intercept it with my own. Really? What's a scientific term for someone who specializes in urine? The cat's eyes go blank as the cogs in his head begin to turn. Shit. Penis doctor? I shake my head. Nice try, but no. Gonna have to retract your license. I pull his hand off of me, much to his own disappointment. Though I do recall you being an expert in one particular field. He tilts his head. How to give someone an orgasm? I smile. Maybe, but personally I'm much more interested in information that may lead to closing the case of Oliver Blanche. For a split second, I see the cat's lips drop into a frown, before they curve into a smile. Well, I did say we'd talk when we get here, eh? Fair enough. He crosses his arms. Ask your questions, I'll answer what I can. He watches as I pull a small notebook out of my bag and flip it open. Let's see here. He loses a genuine chuckle as I click my pen. You take this stuff seriously, huh? I smile back at him, turning his favorite tactic against him. I take my detective work as seriously as you take your jokes, mister. He tilts his head, shrugging his shoulders and smiling back at me. My jokes. I respond with a quick nod before asking the most basic question of any interview. So, what's your name and age? His grin stretches further across his face. Name is Mike Hawk, born June 9th, 1969. I smile back at him, though my half-lidded eyes contribute much more to my expression. And your real information? He shrugs. Don't you already know these things? I told you on Discord. Well, sure, but it's customary to start any interview with that. Oof, I almost slipped and called it an interrogation. He raises a brow at my request, but complies. Alright, name's Samuel Wong, born February 16th, 1996. I hide a smile behind my neutral expression. That info matches up with what he's already told me. Thank you. Next, what was your relationship with Oliver Blanche? He takes a second to think, even going as far as to rub his chin as the memories return to him. We were friends. His first real answer, and as far as I could tell, it was only a half-truth. I call his bluff. Really? Were you close? He shakes his head. Not terribly. I lock eyes with him. Oh, was he more of an acquaintance? The cat shrugs. Kind of. He smiles at me. I was the type that made it an effort to know everybody, especially people who catch my eyes. He winks at me. Ah, I see. I shrug off his obvious flirt, nodding my head and marking that note down. So, when was the last time you had any contact with him? The cat raises his chin to look at the ceiling, returning his eyes to mine after a few seconds. June of 2014. That was the last month I spent rolling around this town. The furious scribbling of my pen is the only sound that carries across the motel room, as I'm sure to catch every word. That was the year you graduated high school, yes? I barely scraped through, but crammed at the end of the year. After that, I moved back to Cali for a few months to stay with my mom. I see. What did you do after that? I flew back to Virginia, enrolled in VSU for the spring semester, been living around the area since then. Oh, VSU? What are you majoring in? Another question that doesn't help the investigation, but easy to answer questions are helpful to keep him talking. Good question. He smirks. But if you want an honest answer, I want to ask the same of you. What goals are you pursuing right now? I tap my pen against my notebook, doing my best to avoid spending too long dwelling on the question. Momentum is important during an interrogation, and every attempt to make at increasing his own needs to be snuffed out. Well, I want to go into criminology, specifically investigation. I smile. I really like giving interviews, if you couldn't tell. He slits his eyes at me, though the stony smile never leaves his mouth as he does. I could have guessed as much. His eyes close completely and his smile expands, making his pearly white teeth visible. Though you certainly have a long way to go in that department, I think. I tilt my head briefly before leaning closer to him. I don't disagree, that's why I want to get some practice in, after all. I attempt to smile back at him, but in the blink of an eye, he reaches forward and grabs my wrist. Like this, for example, when you're nervous, you start fiddling with this necklace you wear. I blink. Am I? I retract my hands as he loosens his grip on me. Surely enough, her ring was between my fingers. I cough and compose myself. That's good advice, thank you. He slits his eyes again, this time flashing me a smaller but more genuine smile. Of course, I tagged along to help you, didn't I? Though... He presses a finger to his lips, thinking. I could go for some food. I blink at him again. Is it a reasonable time to eat? He shrugs. I haven't had anything to eat since. Well, I could go for something. It's, 7:30? Reasonable time if you ask me. He smiles, using his thumb to point at the door behind him. We'll get some food and then go see the beach. How's that sound? I think back to the last time I had eaten. It was a granola bar I ate at the bus around 6 a.m. My stomach erupts in a flurry of ravenous growls at the mere thought. Okay, deal. You're weird. I shrug my shoulders, shoving another handful of rice into my mouth. You're rough like a fruffer. The cat cocks an eyebrow. What? I chew about 7 times before swallowing the gooby mess of potatoes, grease, and ketchup. Ah, my little brother says the same stuff. He squints at me. Of course he does. Any sane person would. You've eaten like 3,000 calories worth of food. I blink my eyes rapidly, losing the gist of the conversation when staring at the feline's mostly untouched tray of food. Speaking of, you gonna eat that? I point at his chicken sandwich, missing no more than 2 possible bites. He doesn't even break eye contact with me before he shoves his tray across the table. My escort had spent nearly the entire dinner scrolling through his phone, occasionally twirling a french fry between his fingers. Regardless, I smile at him before taking a bite out of his former dinner. He smiles back, a look of interest sparkling in his pale blue eyes. Well, at least you're weird in a cute way. I shrug my shoulders, swallowing the thoroughly chewed food. I could say the same for you. I've never met anybody so interested in clickbait articles about the top 10 spirits you won't believe were truly caught on camera. Number 7 will shock you. He slits his eyes at me, but his lips remain curled in a smile. Number 7 didn't shock you? I chuckle, but before I can retort, he cuts me off. And more importantly, you're admitting you find me cute? I shrug my shoulders, smile not leaving my face. Did I say that? Or did you hear a ghost say it? He folds his arms, but this time it's my turn to cut him off. So, I've been going through what you told me about him earlier, but I still haven't put the pieces together yet. Tell me a bit more about Oliver. He tilts his head to the side, clearly analyzing my words. You mean to tell me what I said earlier wasn't enough? His voice is dripping with sarcasm, but I refrain from interacting with it for the time being. Come on, surely there's more that you can tell me. What, like how big his dick was? I blink. I don't... If I had to guess, 6 inches. I saw him with a hard-on once, but that stupid hoodie he always wore was in the way. Wait, I can't work with that. He always wore a hoodie? Was it special to him? The cat leans back in his seat, closing his eyes and getting comfortable. He did, yeah, after he and Dawn started dating. Dawn, you mentioned that name in the car. They were dating? The cat chuckles at my response. Barely. They dated for maybe a week or 2 before Dawn peaced out. I fold my arms. Peaced out how? He left town, dropped out of high school, and never came back, according to all the rumors. But Ollie kept wearing the hoodie after Dawn moved away. Yeah, I graduated a grade ahead of him, but for those 2 years I never saw him without it. He was... odd. Something about him was always off, and I'm not just talking about the way he smelled. So he was like... I'm cut off by the cat shrugging his shoulders and frowning, eyes wide open. Nobody knew. In all the time that I knew him, I've never seen him eat or even go to the bathroom for that matter. People joke that he was an alien all the time. Space rat, that's what most people called him. The cat takes a sip of his drink. Maybe he was an alien. He disappeared because he went back to his home planet. I frown. So people picked on him? Was he regularly bullied? The cat shakes his head. No, not for a lack of trying though. Oh? Sam leans back in his seat again, locking his hands behind his head. First of all, it was impossible to get a reaction out of him. That's what bullies really wanted. But the bigger reason, he was under V's watch. The excitement swells in my chest as I make a connection. V, you mentioned her earlier too. He nods. Bingo. V was one of his only friends. And Dawn, where did he fit into this? He shakes his cup, and upon hearing only ice remaining, sets it back on the table. That's another story in and of itself. He rolls his head on his shoulders until it releases a satisfying crack. Ready to blow this joint? I could go for a walk. I scrunch my eyebrows together, frowning. Are you sure? I have more questions. I lost my cool after getting excited, and he's clearly caught onto it. His grin widens as he flicks his tail at me from across the table. Keep your pants on. We got all the time in the world, eh? He licks his chops, the look of voracious hunger reappearing in his eyes. Or you could take your pants off. I smile back at him, cooling my detective's heart. You want me to embarrass myself in public? I'll pass, thanks. Holy shit. Gentle waves lap at the shores as the soft evening breeze blows across the empty harbor. It carries with it the light scent of the ocean and the taste of salt. I've never been to the ocean before. The cat standing just a few steps behind me chuckles. It's not the ocean, dumbass. This is a Chesapeake Bay. I shake my head. Close enough, I think. I walk a bit further from him, closing the distance between myself and the massive body of water. My feet sink a bit further into the sand with every step, and, despite the season, there's a particular warmth my toes find very pleasant. It stands in stark contrast to the chill lingering in the breeze. I can almost feel long, cold fingers tapping on my back. Faced with the enormous body of water directly ahead of me, I stare out in awe. The allure of the ocean captivates my every cell, and the desire to throw myself into it and discover its mysteries overpowers my body and soul. So, this spot, it was special to him? The cat mumbles quietly behind me. From what I could tell, yeah, I'd seen him out here pretty regularly. He walks closer to me and pulls my attention from the water by resting his hand on my shoulder. Over there, on the dock, he'd sit there and stare out across the harbor. With his free hand, the cat points to a decrepit-looking dock, eroded after what was likely many years of disuse. Gently, I lift the cat's arm off of me before lifting my feet out of their sand tomb and making my way over to the dock. Within a few short paces, I can hear the cat's quiet footsteps behind my own. My eyes remain fixed on the creaking wood beneath my feet as I step up onto the raised wood. At Sam's suggestion, we'd left our shoes in his car since getting the sand out of them would be a nightmare, but seeing the splintering wood beneath my feet now causes an urgent sense of regret throughout my body. Still, hungry for answers, I press on. It wasn't a long walk to reach the end of the dock. Any boat that would moor here couldn't have been large. But why build a harbor here in the first place? Questions like these raced through my mind as I stood at the embrace of the sea, my thoughts occasionally broken up by the sound of a particularly large wave crashing against the dock and making it sway. So, what are you thinking? I gently shake my head. Everything is off about this place. I hear him prop himself up against a particularly creaky stake, barely holding the dock together. Oh, what makes you say that? I breathe out a quiet sigh. Call it a detective's intuition. I watch quietly as the sky darkens, fading from vibrant oranges to soft pinks, followed shortly after by a deep blue. The moon resting silently above the horizon, shining a pale glow across the waves. There's a sense of serenity lingering in the air, but like everything else here, it's lined with the inexplicable flavor of dread. Lost in thought, my eyes fixate on the great celestial body looking down on me, like a god looks upon his worshipper. I close my eyes, exhaling slowly. My brain is foggy, unable to think straight. The case. I need to focus on the case. There are questions I need to answer. Who were you, Oliver? What happened to you? Where can I find you? Opening my eyes again, I'm greeted only by a darkness that shrouds everything around me, an inky blackness that goes on for what seems like eternity. I can feel the terror in my body speaking, pumping adrenaline into me at a rate I'd only felt once before. But I'm calm. Stand in place, arms out to defend myself from nothing, a neutral frown adorning my face. I want to scream. None of this is real. It can't be real. Is this how it felt for you two? As soon as a thought crosses my mind, my eyes shoot down to my feet. They're engulfed by a writhing amalgamation of shadow. Spindly dark fingers slowly clawing up my legs. Fingers become hands. Hands become arms. Arms become flesh. And flesh decays. They scale my waist with ease, shortly consuming my entire torso in clawing darkness. I am forced to watch as my body vanishes into nothing, swallowed by the hungry void beyond my understanding. Everything goes. I could do no more than accept my fate. So, why won't you let me go? Oliver? Oliver Blanche? Are you here? End of chapter 1. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. And wow, that ending was actually pretty cool. I actually like the whole thing that they did there. It was pretty cool and unexpected, and I don't think I've seen anybody really do that. But yeah. So, I guess um the gist, well, not the gist, no. The what this story might center around is uh a disappearance of this Oliver Blanche, and I'm assuming it's this person that we saw at the end. Um I'm curious to see what happened though, because the whole mystery around it is actually piquing my interest, and I like mystery stories like that. So I am very cautiously optimistic about this story. It kind of gives me a little bit of Echo vibes, but like in a good way. It reminds me of the good things about Echo. So I'm hoping it does its own thing, obviously, but I'm excited. Yeah. So we met who I'm assuming is the protagonist, who I think might be one of those like tall maned. I think they're called maned wolves. Yeah, and this cat dude that he met on 4chan of all places. Oh God, and so he's quote unquote helping him with the investigation because I guess he has info that the guy needs. This Juan character, and so I guess he's gonna try to milk it, he out of him, or he's just gonna try to get some information out of him. I know that there's another character. Don't ask me how I know, and I'm curious to see how they also come into play. And I'm curious if this Oliver Blanche guy is the one that we just saw, though. So I'm assuming that they are hiding, not so much, um, they're just. I'm assuming that they're not missing; they're hiding. Um, but what their connection with the main character is, I don't know yet, and I want to know. So yeah, color me intrigued with the story. So, anyways, what are your thoughts? What are your theories about what this story is about for the people who haven't read it already or that don't know the original story? Because I guess this is like it's i- it's either a remake or they're redoing the original story. So if you already know what the original story is about, but it doesn't give any like spoilers, then feel free to put it in the comments because I would like to know. But if it does give spoilers, then keep it to yourself or just casually hint to it. But anyways, Well, thank you all for watching slash listening. If you would like to play Beyond the Harbor R yourself, you can find it over on itch. And of course, I can't link to itch for anybody that doesn't know because YouTube thinks itch links are naughty, especially if the content that it links to is marked as adult, even if it doesn't have any like, adult content like, porn, it will still think that it's, porn. So yeah, I can't link to it. But what I can't link to is the Twitter page of this visual novel, if it does have one, or any other page, for example, Patreon. So if those exist, I will link them down in the description. So, look for them there. And usually, the Twitter links will have direct links to the itch page. So, if you want to read it, you can find it over there and, go through that. And, well, that's it for now. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye.